for purpose and also responsive to need-based population health needs of the country. And we also look at strengthening individual and institutional capacity to manage HRH policies. And this is why I'm encouraged to realize that the focus of AFREhealth is around optimizing what we have, anticipating the future and current workforce, and also strengthening individual institutional capacity. The other key development was the product of a high-level commission on education, on health, economic growth, education and economic growth, which was co-chaired by two presidents, following former President Hollande of France and former President of South Africa, and they were looking into what would be the measures of actually producing the 40 million shortfall of health workforce globally. And the key recommendations of the report that came there is a report that says we needed to work together for health and working together specifically by investing in health workforce. And working together emphasizes partnerships, and one of the central partnerships that is being advocated in AFREhealth is about interprofessional education. If you look at the Global Health HEEG report, one of the key chapters of the report is chapter 2, which talks about viewing health as a key economic sector and a growing source of decent jobs and a driver of inclusive economic development. And I think across the world, and probably in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa in particular, with the declining economies, we really look into how do we create decent jobs for the population as a means of beginning to address all the determinants of ill health, and poverty being one of those. And the second chapter also looks at describing considerations of transformation of health workforce education, so that all health workers have skills that match the health needs of population and can work within their full potential. So those are the key global influences that we look into when we develop HRH strategies that are responsive to countries' health needs. And within South Africa in particular, the whole government is directed by National Development Plan of 2030, which actually has a number of focal areas, and outcome 2 is specific to the health sector, and it relates to how can Ministry of Health make sure that they develop or provide health services that contribute to a long and healthy life for all South Africans. And if you look at the focal areas of the NDP, they coincide with the focal areas of the SDGs, and particularly respond directly to the quadruple burden of disease that is plaguing most of the countries, including South Africa. And relevant to HRH is that primary health care teams need to be able to provide care to families and communities. And that's the only way that you can achieve universal health coverage. And health posts or all posts within public service need to be filled by committed and competent individuals. And the NDP then becomes a national framework within which each sector is actually reviewed in terms of performance. The performance of health sector in terms of NDP relates to those areas that specifically talks to HRH. And again, looking from the NDP, and particularly within the health sector, in 2011, the government of South Africa adopted primary health care, which is now termed re-engineered primary health care, as both an approach and a philosophy to accelerate access to comprehensive health services so that everybody can be able to access care without incurring undue financial costs. Specific to nursing there, we're quite aware that within the health force, nurses almost comprise of the 70% of of health workforce. And then we're also cognizant of the fact that nurses are the face of primary health care. So if countries are adopting primary health care, then the role of a nurse needs to be elaborated, defined, and be strategic in terms of harnessing nursing responses so that we can be able to contribute effectively to primary health care or promoting access to universal health coverage. And if I can just share with you quickly some of the achievements that we have had as a country and that are quite building specifically in terms of preparedness of nurses so that they can be able to promote access to healthcare to all healthcare users. And I've actually highlighted about 3 areas that are responsible, that links directly to a burden of disease that we have in our country, which is mainly HIV and AIDS and TB, communicable diseases, trauma and injury, and fourth one, I can't remember the fourth one. And if you look at HIV and AIDS, program in South Africa, there's been quite an expansion of HIV and AIDS services, and that is based on acceleration of training of nurses to be able to participate in a NIMAT project. To date, we have about 25,000 nurses that have been trained to initiate NIMAT. As a result, we have our HIV sites that have increased from 400 sites that we had in 2009 to about 3,000 sites where patients can then be initiated on us. And as a result, we've been able to increase the number of people that are on treatment up to the number that, in terms of formation of district clinical specialist teams. And these are the teams that go from one district to the other, providing support through midwifery-led obstetric units in terms of making sure that maternal and child services are provided at an early age, including HIV-related treatment. And interestingly is that, probably I should not talk about nurses. Interestingly, 3 of the 7 members of the clinical specialist team comprise of specialist nurses, and there's a primary healthcare nurse, an advanced midwife, and a pediatric nurse, in addition to obstetric and gynecologists, family physicians, and other health professionals which are part of the teams. And the last is about bringing health to communities, and particularly around the work of community-based healthcare teams. And these are the community health-based teams that particularly are teams that are getting into families primarily by community health workers who are trained, supervised, and supported by nurses. And nurses also form part of the school health teams that have been able to go to all 12,000 primary basic education schools in our country to be able to screen and treat learners that have any forms of learning disabilities. So this is how nurses have contributed to promoting access to comprehensive health service delivery towards universal health coverage. However, our nursing curriculum, particularly that is offered at a college level, has been outside the framework of higher education. And as a result, it's now difficult that despite the good work that the nurses has been done, who are a product of both basic and post-basic courses that have been offered at colleges in particular, now they find themselves not able to participate within higher education space because of an announcement by the Minister of Higher Education that the last intake of the current legacy qualification is December 2019. And this announcement was made quite early in 2016. And for the nurses to be able to continue to be able to be a player within higher education sphere, they need to be registered and declared as institutions of higher education and be accredited by both the professional body and the Council on Higher Education. Therefore, for us, NEPI could not have come at any opportune time, because when NEPI came to South Africa, we were faced with this dilemma that after such good performance and such positive contribution of the nursing health workforce, now they are no longer able to continue with the training, particularly at the college level. So NEPI provided an opportunity for us to be able to say, how can we then improve the quality, quantity and relevance of nurses and midwives so that they continue to provide essential health services within the health system. And particularly we're looking at a model which was part of the objectives of the NEPI initiative, that they also provide opportunities for us to be able to develop models and practices that are generalizable for national scale up, and that is what we took advantage of. We then, on the understanding that the lessons that are learned would be then be scaled up to a national scale within a relatively short period of time, and we had this deadline of 2019, and this is way back in 2015. So what did we do, and what were the achievements then of the NEPI project? Through the NEPI project, we were able to identify 3 colleges that really provided an experience or developed a feasibility of what would it take for colleges to actually continue producing what would it take for colleges to be able to continue being a player within the healthcare sector. And then the activities were related to development of institutional capacity, curriculum, strengthening of clinical training equipment across the three colleges. And probably, if in the interest of time, I can only share with you that in one of the colleges, although these were interventions that were done in all colleges, there was focused intervention in upgrading of clinical skills labs, as you would see, and also the ICT, particularly the computer labs, so that nurses can also be able to engage in web-based learning, and also the improvement of clinical skills lab in one of the colleges. And finally, the lessons from NEPI then have been taken up to scale to the extent that now all 9 colleges have been able to develop competency-based programs that are based on the NEPI experience on 3 core programs that are linked to the burden of disease, the 3-year generalist diploma, an advanced diploma, and a range of postgraduate diploma. And as a result, we will then be able, and each of the provinces then have prioritized these programs in terms of when they will start offering these programs. For instance, the generalist program would be offered in 54 platforms, and as you would know, the distribution of others. And all these colleges then have been able to take the national core curriculum that were developed during the NEPI process, and then to be able to customize them and develop province-specific programs that have been submitted and submitted for accreditation. And the good news is that 2 weeks ago, 4 of the 8 colleges obtained full accreditation, while the 4 are outstanding for October. And that took a period of 6 months, and yet NEPI took us 2 years to be able to generate the lessons for upscaling. So in conclusion, health workforce is an investment rather than a liability, and there is no universal health coverage without the right health workforce. And there is a need for sustainable and fit-for-purpose HRH, which then requires strengthening of partnership and holistic approaches rather than isolated efforts of a single sector agency. And health workforce strategy need to be based on robust information, consider health needs and systems design, and harness ICT advances. And again, it needs to be linked to government stewardship for sustainability and be able to gain support. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that.
Talk about the other building blocks in the interest of time, but I'll go straight to service delivery. Why did I choose service delivery? If you heard her presentation, this is key to universal health coverage. It's not just an animal seated somewhere, but it needs people to do it. And they can only do it through a system. So we are going to talk about what is it that we are going to do and how do we do it. And also, if we talk about quality of health service, this is where it is. This is where we talk about it. This is where things either work or they don't work. Now, according to WHO 2008, they looked at the primary healthcare setting and described what are the key characteristics of a good service delivery. One of them is a comprehensive service. This comprehension should be at any level, whether it's primary, secondary, tertiary, rehabilitative, or palliative. At whatever level it is delivered, it must be comprehensive. And also, she talked about accessibility. Our population should be able to access these services, whether it is in terms of what level they need to access provider type, but they just need that service to access it. And also, she talked about coverage. How do we reach out to all the people that we care about? That is through a service. And when we reach out, we just don't drop them all the way. There has to be continuity of care throughout the lifespan. If you start looking at a baby, look after that baby until the end of that life. So there has to be continuity of care. Our services should touch all the aspects of a human being. And also, there must be quality. When we talk about quality, it's a complex issue. From whose perspective are you talking about quality? Is it from the patient that is a beneficiary from this service, or is it from your own perspective? And then it has to be person-centered. Sometimes we title people with their diagnosis, TB patient, yeah, HIV patient, but that one is a human being. So it has to surround that patient. We don't just talk about the disease, but it must be the whole human being. And then there must be coordination in delivery of services. If you are referring that patient to another level, to another facility, to another provider, it must be done in a coordinated manner. Above all, there must be accountability and efficiency. There are resources that are involved in delivering this service. And if there are resources that have been invested, we must be accountable. And we must make sure that there's no wastage at all. Now, we have described what a good service delivery should be like. But we do come across issues. And those issues surround the very same characteristics that we talked about. Issues to do with comprehensiveness. You find that some of the care that we provide, or the services that we deliver, are fragmented. The same person has to jump from an eye clinic to a fracture, to an STI, everywhere, and to a specialist, and to somebody else. And sometimes those things happen because she talked about 40 million people, 40 million health workforce crisis that is there globally. And we know, we heard from the other presenters, that this shortage is mainly within developing countries. So sometimes we provide that fragmented care because we don't have adequate staff. Issues to do with access. Our patients or our services create barriers for our patients. It could be because of the cost that is attached to the care that we provide. It could be the language that we use as providers or as the health professionals. Or it could be geographical barriers. I think the presentation before lunch the presenter who was talking about the strike project in Lesotho showed us a boat, that there's no bridge. When people are sick, they have to be in that boat to reach the facility. So that would be a barrier to our service. And sometimes it is simply our attitude. The patient might have traveled a long way only to find us not paying any attention to that patient. So we create a barrier there and there. The other issue that comes about is because of coverage. We fail to reach out to certain people because of various reasons. Either they are poor, or they are of a different gender, or they have certain social issues. We cannot reach them out, or they are too young or too old. And sometimes we can't provide continuity of care. Why? Sometimes everything will be there, but we are simply disorganized to provide that kind of continuity of care. And there are a lot of things to do with quality of care. Most of the times, our services are poor. And that's the very same question I posed earlier on, whose perspective? Is it from the patient or my perspective as a health worker? And sometimes we talk about them like diseases, the TB ward, the HIV patients, but they are human beings. And their care is not comprehensive at all. We are looking just at the disease. And our services sometimes are not well coordinated. The same patient has to wait the whole day to get, a service. And we lack sometimes accountability and efficiency. I don't know about your countries, but we are slowly seeing corruption within the hospital corridors. Patients cannot be seen without tipping somebody. Yeah, they cannot have an X-ray if they don't give money to somebody else. But these are public institutions. And sometimes we waste a lot of resources. So there are all those issues. And in the interest of addressing all those issues, I'll just talk about a few innovations which are out there. She talked about the issue of human resource crisis. And she talked about so many nurses providing ART care. When I trained, and maybe some of you as nurses, you never prescribed those drugs. You always had a clinician or a doctor or somebody doing that. But we know how we have suffered from the epidemic. We cannot leave it to one single card. So some of those responsibilities have been pushed down to nurses. And also as nurses, they have pushed down the certain responsibilities to even a lower card. Those are innovations to try and address those problems. And these kinds of innovations have got massive strength. If you look at the doctor who was prescribing ART in one of your clinics, once that task was shifted, there was some relief because somebody else took over. And the other advantage is that there is improved coverage because you share now the load to many other nurses. And also, you also increase the level of responsibility to the nurses or whosoever you shifted your task. And when that happens, some people feel better. They feel satisfied that they are doing something else extra. However, these innovations have challenges. Once a task is taken away from you, if you're not careful, you don't practice it, you lose the skill because you've passed it over to somebody else. And there can also be lack of supervision. You had too many patients, you've passed it over to somebody else who is going to learn, gain proficiency on the job, then you don't look at them at all. You are comfortable that they are able to do whatever you're trained to do. And because of that, a lot of compromise happens on the quality of care that is provided. And we believe that when you shift tasks, you think it's cheap, but you still spend some money because you have to train those people. And if you want it to work very well, you have to supervise them. And that is also an extra cost. And in some countries, that doesn't work. And you know that if we are to implement that task shifting successfully, we just have to spend some money. We supervise, we train, we make sure that things are going on well. That's an example of an innovation. Another innovation is about accessing care. We heard before lunch that we use ICT, an example is AFREhealth, those of you who were here, and that has also got easy advantages. And we heard that there's improved access, coverage, relationship, and even the provider is confident because they've gained that skill and they are comfortable to provide that service because they do it over and over and over. And if you talk about fraud, at least it's reduced from that perspective. And even the patient who comply with the prescribed visits, because we'll be checking either on the phone, texting, or whatever. But it has also got some challenges. The person that is using the technology may not provide a full range of services. It will be just one service. So that is a problem in itself. And some technologies in other countries will rely on donors. If you are given funding, then that is going to work. If the funding expires and you have no means of sustaining that, then the innovation is there. And there's also lack of cultural appropriateness. There are certain things that people cannot discuss through media. But because this is the technology that you've handed it to them, they are forced to discuss those kind of things. And we don't even work hard in some countries to improve on the infrastructure so that we have enough energy. It dies there naturally. If you talk about quality, there are so many innovations that are out there to quality improve it. And I'm not going to repeat the questions, but you know that like a patient who is coming from a very rural area, they are afraid of you. You ask them how was the care that you got, they will say, oh, it was wonderful. But what is wonderful about the care that they got? Do they know what they are supposed to get? And from the provider, we look at different aspects. Is the provider able to be competent enough? Is the provider efficient? All those things. And it also depends. For a provider to provide a good service, you have to look at what is there. How are the resources there? How are the numbers of patients? What are we looking for at the end of the care that the provider provides? And what does it take? I just have one example for an innovation that has been used in my own country. Performance-based incentives, whether they use financial rewards, and it has been successful in maternity, in other aspects. They had their own indicators to do with the structure and the care that the patient gets, and at the end of the prescribed time, they assessed whether the midwives were able to comply the laid out standards. It has worked, but I don't know what will happen when the funding expires. Will the midwives revert to their own old ways? What do all these simple innovations mean for health professionals' education? As educators, we need to embrace them. And we need to take them up in our curriculum, but we need to do some homework before we take everything. Because eventually our curriculum will become very big. Yeah? And we have to promote professionalism in using those tools. For example, if you are using a telephone, you need to make sure that there's privacy there over certain issues. And what is your professional obligation? You have to maintain confidentiality, you have to maintain visual, audio, privacy. But above all, when we train, we must make sure that our learners they participate in the evaluation of these innovations. So that if they are good innovations, they can be uploaded. and they can even inform policy or influence government to make them into policies. We also have to encourage or to promote implementation research. They have to do it themselves. And these are the few innovations that I thought I would talk about.
Thank you very much, Professor Kazembe. I'll now hand over to Dr. Elsie Chigulu-Norwande, the Secretary General of AFREhealth.
Good afternoon.
The good people, and government of the United States for providing the funding for mapping that brought this to me. Then co-authors, the mapping leadership, Harvard and AP leadership. I can see the CEO of AP here, and I think this is very good. And of course, the University of Joseph Best Teaching Hospital. As we go on, we will find out that there is no cause for alarm. Now, if you look at it, you will see that all these are the WHO figures for different African countries. Algeria has met that benchmark, but most of the sub-Saharan African countries haven't managed to reach that level. I was surprised when I saw that even South Africa has not reached 1 doctor per 1,000 population. I can understand Nigeria with all our population, but that's it. And then to see the shortage of doctors we have in Nigeria, this is not because Nigeria is not training doctors. We have 33 medical schools, and these medical schools are producing doctors every year. Some schools produce 150, others produce more than that, and some produce less than that. At the last check, about 19,000 doctors are on the register of the Medical and Dental Council, and half of them are currently practicing in Nigeria. This, of course, gives a ratio of like 1 doctor to about 4,000 of population. The reasons for Nigeria not getting enough people, immigration is part of it. People, of course, emigrate to greener pastures, you can't keep people down. And then maldistribution, and this is well known to everyone. Most of the doctors are around Lagos and Abuja. About half of the doctors in Nigeria are around Lagos and Abuja. Then the rest of them are in other southern parts of the country. In the north, they are concentrated in state capitals where you have teaching hospitals. And so it is the maldistribution that is the problem. So we looked at it and asked the question, what are the problems? The first problem, of course, that's known to all is that we have the issue of poor retention of doctors in rural areas. In the north, the rural areas don't have doctors, period. If you've been to the north, you will know that it's very difficult to find doctors. In fact, in Plateau State, you have about 300 specialists in the teaching hospital. But outside Jos, you can't find specialists anywhere else in the entire state. And this is a state that is quite vast. You can't find specialists anywhere else. Maybe the odd family physician that is working in one area or another. So the problem is quite intense. So it is poor retention of health workers in rural and remote areas with the negative consequences for both health services and patients. And then the second part, the second problem we have is the concern about competency deficits, among healthcare trainees, whether they be medical students or resident doctors or other trainees. There's the problem of competency deficit. You see, if you want to solve a problem, you have to use what you have to solve the problem. So that was what we did during the mapping period. We tried to look carefully at what we have. We have overcrowded trainers and trainees in our teaching hospitals, that is in the urban center. And then we have these PEPFAR renovated satellite hospitals that are all around that they used to look after HIV positive patients. And of course, the postgraduate schools made it easier by requesting trainees to do rural posting. And then of course, in Nigeria, you know, health is on the concurrent list. And what that means is that the federal government, state government, and the local governments can do whatever they like. As far as health is concerned, they don't have to do things together. They can carry out their own health programs, you know, parallel health programs. And of course, at that time, we had medical support. So, well, if you've been with us during the PEPFAR days, you will be familiar with this slide. You know, this is the PEPFAR support in Plateau State. The teaching hospital was well supported, 14 satellite hospitals, and of course, primary health care facilities were also well supported, renovated, and prepared for service delivery. The laboratories were, of course, the laboratories were well looked after, were supported and equipped. There's electricity, water, you know, boreholes in the different areas, and even vehicles, you know, to improve logistics. So all these were important. All these were available. And our question, of course, was how do we improve training and make quality healthcare accessible to people in the rural communities? So we want to improve training and want to make quality health service accessible to people in the rural centers. Well, we thought that the best would be partnership, because we already have all of these things. It's just to bring everyone to the table, and then we can start moving from there. So we embarked on bringing all the stakeholders together, you know, the State Ministry of Health, the proprietors of faith-based hospitals, Just University Teaching Hospital, the University of Just, the Association of Resident Doctors, and of course the Just University Medical Students Association. You know, you cannot shave somebody's hair in his absence. So we had to bring all those stakeholders on board to come and sit down and work on this. The whole idea is that at the end we'll be able to sign an MOU that will make us move together. So on Friday, the 21st of September 2012, we had that meeting. So these are all the people who attended. And pictures don't tell lies, so you can see all those who were at that meeting. You know, and many of them are in this meeting here. There are many of them are present. I can see the Deputy Vice Chancellor at the time smiling from behind. Many of them are here, you know. So really, this presentation is to tell you how far we have gone and what have we been able to do concerning what we promised to do. Now, the steps of the implementation meant that we will need to identify the sites. You can't just go to everywhere. We have to select sites based on geography, patient flow, and of course, continued PEPFAR support. Because if you go to sites that PEPFAR is still supporting, you have a higher likelihood of succeeding because some additional resources are still coming in there and things will be easier to cover. So after that, we worked on the MOU, and after the MOU, there were a few things to be done before we could start. We used the minimal funding we had from MEDI to fill in those gaps and got some of the hospitals to fix, you know, like where the doctors would live, where all these sort of other small things, we fixed them and then commenced. After commencement, we had the periodic monitoring. This presentation, of course, is part of the evaluation report. The evaluation is ongoing, and actually they are still analyzing a lot of the qualitative side of the work. But yesterday they sent me the facility data, and you will see some of the slides from the facility data that I've already presented, made available. It's a mixed method approach. We use questionnaire enhanced by focus group discussion and in-depth interviews. And of course, we use the facility records to get quantitative data, which is what I'll show you later. The actual implementation started January of 2014. The results. Well, for the students, the sort of duties the medical students were doing, they gathered skills in things like setting up IV lines, running the casualty, passing NGTU. In fact, a couple of them did lumbar puncture, and you know, stuff like that. These are things they would never have done if they were in the teaching hospital. But in the peripheral settings, they were acting as the house officers, the first of course, so they had to do a lot of those things. And if you listen to some of their comments, they said, well, in the place, patients gave attention to them and spoke to them properly because they were the only doctors that saw them first. That usually in the teaching hospital, so many doctors would have talked to them. So when they run there as medical students, the patients don't want to even talk to them. You know, and then of course they felt that in the peripheral sites, they learned freely instead of what they described as being under duress in the teaching hospitals. And what they liked most was what they called their morning meetings. In the morning meetings, they make all the cases they saw the previous day, they would present during the morning meetings the next day, and the consultants, the senior registrars will be there. So they will present. So they felt that made them to feel like doctors, and they started taking responsibility. That was what they liked most about the program. They were generally happy with the program. They felt that perhaps if they attend the rural posting a few more times, and if they have longer time to stay in those rural settings, it may influence their going to rural centers to pick jobs thereafter. But we've not been able to follow up that. Well, for the residents, what their expectations were is that they were expecting to come and gain skills, surgical skills. And there's a list here of all the things they were involved in, including, of course, looking after the HIV patients. For the residents, they also felt that they benefited significantly from that. The institutions would have benefited from the improved services and then the surgical skills. And then, of course, the residents also felt that they are not sure if it will influence their place of practice. So we didn't quite press on that. For the facility owners, in my summary, I put much on them. But two of the areas I just want to highlight. The program is scalable in this country. Your situation in another state may be a bit different, but the principle of it, the question of partnership, to improve service delivery and improve outcomes for patients and improve training is certainly scalable in this country.
Thank you so much for sharing with us those results, amazing results. And really it shows that decentralized training contributes to better health outcomes. Very good results, thank you. So next we have a presentation. There are 3 people who are going to present, but they've agreed that only 2 will present and the 3rd one will be involved in answering the questions. So first we have Professor Chinyere Ezeka, who is a professor of pediatrics at the college.
This presentation for NEST 360, which denotes newborn essential solutions and technologies. Thank you, AFREhealth. Also, this conference will be speaking around achieving universal health coverage and attaining the Sustainable Development Goals. And at this point, we want to look at a vulnerable section of the population, the newborns. We won't all be seated here. Is that not correct? And unfortunately, we have a large pool of these morbidities and mortality for the newborn, where out of 7 million deliveries, we have 250,000 babies dying every year. We're looking at about 700 babies dying every day. That is totally unacceptable. And you look at other African countries, we're not doing good at all. So, how do we close this gap for these babies to achieve universal health coverage, for us to achieve SDG goals 3.2 by 2030? Why do these babies die? We have the major causes, up to 80% of these causes, from 3 major areas. Prematurity, contributing 35%, global figures. We know that these babies who are born too soon, who are the preterms, have peculiar problems because of their immaturity. First, starting with respiratory support at birth. They have respiratory problems. They are not able to keep warm. Thermal instability is a problem. They have feeding challenges. They are prone to infections. They have a lot of jaundice due to the liver immaturity. And then hypoglycemia and many other metabolic problems remain a challenge. Then infections. Apart from sepsis, we also have pneumonia, diarrhea, and unfortunately in some countries in Africa, we're still seeing tetanus, which actually totally depends on this mother taking tetanus toxoid immunization. So when you have 60% of deliveries being at home, it can be extrapolated that these mothers did not attend antenatal most of the time, and they did not take tetanus toxoid immunization. So we still have babies dying of tetanus. Then the babies who have asphyxia at birth, they have hypoxic brain injury. In addition to that, we're talking about under 5. We're looking at pneumonia, we're looking at malaria, we're looking at diarrhea, we're looking at HIV/AIDS. But the neonates actually take a large bulk of this under 5. So that pie chart, every time you should be inserting the neonatal component. So this is Nigerian figure where we have newborns contributing 33% of under 5 morbidity and mortality. In some countries and in some zones, it's as high as 40 to 45% of under 5 deaths being due to newborn morbidity and mortality in problems. So what does this denote? That unless a lot of focus, unless a lot of zoom, unless a lot of momentum around newborn deaths and trying to reduce the causes, Nigeria, the whole of Africa, will not be able to attain the sustainable development goals. And another information, another point is that 75% of these newborn deaths are preventable. We're looking at being born too soon, prematurity. We're looking at kangaroo mother care. We're looking at infections. We're looking at asphyxia pertaining to skilled birth attendants at delivery. Trying to drive this further home, we have this graph that shows the neonatal mortality rate that's as low as 2 to 3 per 1,000 births in many industrialized countries. And we look at many sub-Saharan African countries that have neonatal mortality rates as high as beyond 30, some as high as 37, 40 to 45 per 1,000 live births. And what does this say? We're looking at sustainable development goals, getting a goal of 12 by 2030. Would this be achievable at the current rate? So the graph above is showing that at the rate that we're going, at the pace we are going, unless we take very drastic measures, that it will take 110 years for African newborns to achieve the same optimal survival as the babies delivered in the better equipped centers abroad. So, this is a message for us to move ahead with as we talk about SDGs, as we talk about achieving universal health coverage. So, the Newborn Essential Solutions and Technology Program is actually representing 3 continents. It's a light group representing 6 countries and about 12 universities for now. And it involves not only clinicians, but engineers, entrepreneurs, marketers, policymakers, all with one passion to improve newborn health across board in the countries involved. There's been a lot of work, a lot of synergy around basic essential newborn care. We're looking at neonatal resuscitation, we're looking at cord care, we've been trying to say clean deliveries. But the gap had always remained the sick and small newborn. For us to provide holistic, comprehensive care for these babies. And this is where Next 360 program comes in. It's coming in 3 tripods around innovation, education, and implementation. I will hand over now to Professor Murphy to continue the rest of this presentation. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. So I'm going to talk about the intervention that Nest of an intervention in Rwanda, mostly focused on education of healthcare workers, nurses, medical officers and doctors, with some technology improvements, and the intervention ended up with a very modest result. It wasn't bad, it was significant, it was improved, but it isn't the answer. We think that the answer has to be something a lot more dramatic, and that we can't wait 100 years to impact neonatal mortality. I'm sure everybody in here has a room like this in their hospital. This is a bunch of oxygen concentrators that were donated or purchased used that don't work. I don't know why they're saved in a room, but they all seem to be saved someplace in a hospital facility, just basically taking up space. They're not really repairable. They're just sitting there taking up a lot of space, as I said. And this is true for a lot of the donated equipment. Some of the countries have actually banned donated used equipment. But it seems to just keep showing up, and it's actually not doing very much good. So this is something that really has to be addressed as part of this, because especially with oxygen is critical in these neonates with all the respiratory distress problems and everything that they have. So what do we really need? We need better technologies in addition to the improved education. And the technologies that we need have to be effective. They have to be as good as what is in the wealthier countries. We are not going to accept substandard equipment and supplies or reagents. That's a given. It has to be affordable. It has to be within reach of African countries or low-income countries. There's no point, for instance, keeping a baby warm with a bear hugger that has $300 of disposables for each use. This is not going to work. It just isn't going to happen here in many other places. In the rich countries, there's absolutely no incentive to make anything cheaper, particularly in the United States, which is the worst culprit of all. It's basically just time and material. Whatever you do, you basically get paid. And that's why we spend about $9,000 a person per year in healthcare alone. This is not a model that anybody really wants or can afford down here. So it's got to be affordable. And then finally, it's got to be sustainable. This stuff has to work better. It has to be work in an environment that has challenging temperature conditions, humidity conditions, electronic grids that aren't exactly reliable all the time. And it's got to be sustainable and fixable in the environment that we live in. Okay, so what do we say? What are we talking about here? We're really talking about a very comprehensive solution that involves technology and education. On the technology side, we've listed everything in different categories that you see up here. Starting with what you would put in a neonatal ward, things to prevent and treat infections, equipment like a syringe pump, and diagnostic for sepsis, things that focus on temperature stability, hydration and nutrition, managing jaundice, point-of-care diagnostics for a variety of health issues, and very critically, breathing support. Right now, we have put together a bundle that today exists of about 18 different products and diagnostic assays, which are part of the nest. So it's this bundle, it's the whole package. 8 of the devices and assays that we have are already commercially available, but we're putting them in the package. There's no need to recreate every single thing if you could get it commercially available today at a reasonable price. 6 have been modified or are new and are undergoing clinical evaluation right now. So these are forthcoming very soon. And 3 have been developed de novo and are at the prototype stage. And this will probably take another 1 or 2 years for them to get to the market. If you could read the slide, and I apologize, it's kind of small, but in many of these boxes here, it says future technology. So this is a very dynamic model. What we've done over the past, actually 6 years, with the sustainable. So this is really a critical part of our whole picture. Okay, so our goals on the innovation side are by 2022, which is the end of our first cycle, is to source and strengthen our supply chains for this bundle and put this whole comprehensive piece together. And in real numbers, we expect in the next 4 years that 265 hospitals will have one of these nest bundles in place. So, you can't just drop off the equipment with an instruction manual. That just doesn't work. And some of this stuff will be new. Some will be equipment that people haven't seen before, and education is a critical component of this. It doesn't work without more education. So this is actually from Malawi, where the principal investigator of the NEST project is actually at Rice University in Houston, and their main site is in Malawi. And so they've tested a lot of these products there and developed a lot of the products in Malawi. And here you actually see the CPAP machines that they developed for about 1/6 the price of a typical CPAP machine that's oops, sorry. No. The CPAP machines have been made in a very firm manner. They're very strong and and they're sustainable in the environment in Malawi. And here's a whole training program that's ongoing here. It's a very ambitious program, training the current staff to be able to use this new equipment, and also training staff as they come on board in the future. Now, besides training the healthcare workers, nurses, physicians, and the like, we have to train the people to take care and maintain these machines. So there's maintenance and there's repair. There's two different things. Regardless, we've got to train technicians to be able to deal with the equipment. In addition to the maintenance component, which is we call applied engineering, like I said, we're going to have these design studios to actually improve on design or develop new products. Okay, so our goals on the education side of this thing by 2022 is to implement clinical education programs that we're going to train 17,000 healthcare workers. This is a very giant project, by the way. And I don't know if it was mentioned already, but it is initially funded by the MacArthur Foundation and some other partners. Also by 2022, we're going to train 2,000 technicians that can be used throughout the countries that we're launching this in right now. So that's our goal. What about implementation? Implementation is outlined here. So in 2018, we planned everything. So the planning is pretty much done. 2019, we launched, our first country is Malawi, where we had actually, the group had the most experience. And then we're going out to 4 other countries. So in the first part of this thing, the countries are Malawi, Tanzania, Kenya, and Nigeria. And we will develop the supply chains. We'll figure out how to get these bundles all together. This includes the financing, but also the training and everything. We'll work out in this first phase, everything that's needed to make this thing work on a bigger scale. The second part of this is type 2, phase 2, is we're going to add 4 additional countries. So we're going to add Uganda, Ethiopia, Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire. And so by that time, we'll have everything streamlined and get the NEST programs out to those additional 4 countries for a total of 8 countries, ultimately reaching 16 million babies born in facilities with NEST. And our goal, our metric right now, is 50% neonatal mortality reduction. As Chineri said, 75% of the neonatal mortality is preventable. So this is it's an ambitious goal, but we can even do better than this. But that's going to be our metric now, because we're nowhere near that at this particular time. So at the end of the 8 years in 8 countries, we hope that this system will show that this intervention will show that it's very effective, and that we will catalyze this to the entire continent of Africa. And in the presentations we've already got interest from other countries in Asia and Latin America as well. There's no reason why this would be just limited to Africa. So this could go, this will expand in a major way. So we ask you, AFREhealth people, as we develop this thing, and if you're in one of the test countries, to partner with us and help us along with this, this project and development. And we can work together to get this thing done. I want to thank all the people in Lagos who are critical, and the University of Malawi who are critical of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, both of you, for this presentation. I would like to recognize Kara Paramountain, who was part of this team that did not join us here for presentation. Please put up your hands so that they see you. Thank you so much. And this is really innovative and interprofessional, so this is amazing. Going beyond health professions and bringing in the biomedical engineers, I think this is really innovative, and that's the way to go for us. And we can see that the results are going to be amazing. So thank you so much, our presenters. Unfortunately, because of we can only take 3 questions. If you really have something you'd like to ask, because we are already late. 1 there. Okay. So we have only 1 question. Very good. So we can. Okay, 2 of them. Please take them. Okay. As they take the microphone, I would like to announce that the breakout session 3F will be in the boardroom, and it's on emotional intelligence and negotiations. So please, those who would like to go to 3F, it will be upstairs in the boardroom at 4th floor. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you so very much, Dr. Phillips. I'm from the Institute of Biology, Nigeria. Remarkable presentations, and I want to really appreciate the presenters for the wonderful presentation and efforts on the field. My concern has to do with curriculum, medical curriculum, and how it's responding to a leapfrogging generation. So here you have, we see we are in transitional phase epidemiologically. We still have to deal with non-communicable diseases that we've not even been able to resolve. And then you have a generation that is accessing services online. I'm talking of the youth generation. My worry is the healthcare, the current healthcare providers. I'm not so sure if they are being, the capacity are being built to respond to this new crop of healthcare users, who most of the services are online, e-platform. So my worry is across part of that, for those of you in this space, as you rethink the curriculum that answers for non-communicable diseases, communicable diseases, how does it reach target population that are consuming basically all their services online?
In fact, that's actually a challenge
of AFREhealth to spread innovation throughout medical schools that are part of AFREhealth and beyond. Because it seems like if this is an intervention that will really work and be rolled out, it's nice to hear it here and see how it disperses through the different countries involved. So I just thought this was a nice added value to AFREhealth to show innovation in this particular community. They can all benefit from this activity as it rolls out.
Few interventions that think as big. Because the problem is a big one when you're really doing a big intervention, going country by country across Africa. I think that's exactly what needs to happen in a coordinated way, making it cost efficient, looking for smart what technologies are affordable, everything else. So just hand off and well done. And on the education side of things, picking up on the gentleman's comments, so we work in online education. We have pediatrics, for example, produced with Brown University's obstetrics, gynecology already with videos which can be delivered on Android devices and used offline and so on. And then you might have additional needs on top of that, so I'm happy to talk to you separately and support you. And anyone else who wants to do digitally supported medical education, please come see me. I'm happy to talk to any of you.
So you could address them to her later. You did mention about cost. I think that's an important thing. If you look at the live births and you do the investment per live birth, the approximate amount of money per live birth is $1.45 per live birth to put these in all those places. And of course, the more you do, of course, the lower it will go. So it's cheaper than the whole vaccine programs for babies. So that's the range that it's in per birth.
Thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause to all our speakers. I would also like to thank the audience and my co-chair, Professor Hakim. Have a nice evening. Thank you so much for your patience. 3F is upstairs. Please go to the various breakout sessions. So enjoy the next part of the presentation.
Okay.